Now, I was asked this question over on Facebook, and the question basically was, what EQ would you recommend? The EQ that I would recommend, if you should just ask me what EQ would I recommend, I would say 100% I would recommend the Maselec MEA-2, because it is one of the best EQs you will ever use. It's such a lovely sounding EQ. It's not massively coloured. It's a brilliant EQ for mastering, and it is the one that I would always recommend. And anybody that asks me, I always say to them, you know, how much have you got to spend? Because if you've got 6,000, buy yourself a Maselec MEA-2. If you've got 12,000, buy yourself two. Use one in mid-side. But I want to answer these questions based on price range. And I just literally done a compression video where I talk through all the compressors in certain price ranges, which one I would recommend. So for EQs, let's start low. Let's start at the £200 mark. £0 to £200. What EQ would I recommend at £0 to £200? I would recommend staying in the box. Don't come out the box. If you're going to go £200, spend £200 on EQ, there's no point. Unless you have to EQ out the box for a purpose of, let's say you're tracking, something like that. Unless you have a purpose of being out the box, stay in the box at £200. Anything you buy at £200 is going to be very budget. It's not going to be brilliant. And chances are, if you're spending £200 on an EQ, your converters aren't the best. You're probably using something like just a standard interface Focusrite or a UAD Apollo, something like that. And your converters aren't the best converters in the world to be coming out the box to hit £200 EQs. So a £200 EQ, don't even bother. Stay in the box and use a plugin. And get a really good plugin, because a top quality EQ plugin is far better than £200 out the box EQ. If you now were to go into the next bracket of like 200 up to 1,000, you've got a lot of options. You've got 500 series options. You've got like the Maag EQ4, being mono though. You've got all these different options. The one I would say to go for, and this is I've had this EQ in 500 series for a long time. I don't have it anymore because I sold all my 500 series to put everything into 19-inch racks. But the one I would recommend, if you're running a 500 series, if you're looking at EQs and compressors at a kind of minimum kind of range of like up to £1,000, you're not looking at buying the big boys, you should be looking at 500 series, because you're getting a lot more for your money. And the reason I say that is because this particular unit isn't much better in 19-inch rack version. It's not much better. So if you've got a nice 500 series rack, an Alicia X filter, now they are very good EQs. They sound, the best way to explain an Alicia X filter, and it's how I've always felt about when I use them, is it's very round. It has a very round sound to it, very kind of broad cues, and it just feels like a very round EQ. And I don't know if that translates well to you, but that's how it feels to me. And I've always thought the Alicia X filter sounded brilliant, and I love the X filter, and it's a very budget EQ, but it is very good and has a lot of features to it as well. So that is what I would recommend at the from £200 to £1,000. Going into the next bracket, the next bracket being 1,000, let's say 1,000 to £2,000. There's one prime candidate for that, and the reason I'm going to recommend this is because I genuinely do love this EQ. It's the Maag EQ4m. I think they're about I think they're about £1,700, or maybe they're a bit more. Actually, I think they might be about 2,100. So let's just do the XVAT price and throw that in at like 1,800. The reason I'll say the Maag EQ4m is because you've got the airband, which sounds ridiculously good, and it does sound really good, and it's a 40 hertz up to 40 hertz airband, which is brilliant, and it does sound great. And then you've got the sub, and then I think you've got maybe 4 or 5 bands in between, which are all selected bands for you. So you haven't got a frequency you can't adjust the frequency, but they're fixed bands. And each one is very, very good. That is not going to be your own EQ. You're going to want something that's more of a precision EQ. But this is a very, very, very good EQ for that price range. Next, let's go to the 2000. Let's go 2000 to 4000. And I'm going to say, what am I going to say for 2000 to 4? Oh, do you know what I will say? And I think it just creeps in at around 4000. I'm going to say the Muse EQ, or the Mus EQ, or the Maselec, whatever people want to call it, by Alicia. The Alicia Mus EQ, or Muse EQ. I'm going to say that. I've got one literally sitting down there, because I'm doing a to B demo of it at the moment. And the reason I'm going to say that is because it's a unique EQ. It's a 5-band EQ, but it sounds unreal how good it sounds. It really does sound good. And it's one EQ that I'm really, really pleased that I have, because of its unique. It's a very unique EQ, and it does sound great. The lows in it sound so precise. If you use the hardware, you will the software, you will know what I'm talking about, because the software and the hardware are very similar. I remember comparing the two when I first got it, and I thought to myself, have I just wasted $4,000 on an EQ? Because they do sound very alike. I realised afterwards, once I did do some detailed testing, that there's a lot more that the hardware gives you, and it's not 100%, and it's certainly not 95%, but it's close. So if you use the plugin, you will realise just how good the hardware is, because imagine how good the plugin is, plus another 10%, 20% on top. So at $4,000, I would say that the Alicia Muse EQ. Then we go into the realm of up to £4,000 to £6,000, and like I said at the start of the video, highly recommend the Maselec MEA-2. You will see a Maselec MEA-2 in virtually every high-end mastering studio, and there's a reason for that, because they do sound great, and they are the standard for EQs and mastering EQs, and they are brilliant. And you know, if you can afford it, get 2. Use the second one in mid-side. Use them in 2 different ways. They're brilliant. They really are brilliant. If I was to go up to the next bracket, let's go from 6,000 up to 10,000. There is one prime candidate up here, and it is an EQ that I do want to buy at some point. It's just at the moment I'm having trouble getting hold of one. And that is the Buzz. I can't think what it's called now. What's the Buzz EQ called? Can't think what it's called. Let's just call it the Buzz EQ. It's by Buzz Audio, and it's an EQ. I can't think what it's called. REQ. That's what it's called. The Buzz REQ. And it is brilliant, and it's such a lovely sounding EQ. We bought one. Basically, the problem we had, we bought one. And it was custom made, and it was beautiful. It arrived, it was black face, looked incredible. The only problem was we put it on the stand, started using it, and one side had this really bad buzz in it, literally buzz. So we had to send it back, because it was the right channel was buzzing, and it was literally going bzzz, like that. Ironically, being called Buzz Audio, no fault of the Buzz Audio, no fault of theirs. It was it just arrived like that. That's how it arrived, and it was through another kind of distribution company that I won't mention their names, but we bought it through them. This was going back a couple of years ago, so it weren't with our trusted suppliers that we use now. But back then, we got it through them, and it arrived broken. So we sent it back, and it was like, right, it's going to be 6 to 8 months lead time on getting it back. And I was just like, are you joking? Like, we've literally just got it, and now I've got to wait 6 to 8 months for it to be fixed. So I basically sent it back. I sent it back and got me money back on that. But it's one now that I'm trying to get hold of now, and I do want to get one. And the Buzz Audio REQ was a very, very special EQ. So if you can get hold of one, really do, because they are incredible. But obviously priced at, I think they're priced at about £7,000 to £8,000, which may seem a lot, but they are very good. And they've got like a really nice saturation circuit on the right hand side of the EQ as well, which was very, very, very good. I think it had about 5 different saturation types as well. So yeah, they are my recommendations, I guess, for EQs in different price ranges. But if I was to recommend one, and I had to recommend one, I would recommend all day long the Maselec MEA-2.